So this morning we are briefly sharing our personal journey, and that's probably easier than having the one-on-one conversation in the foyer with every member of the church over the next 3 years. And so, ladies before gentlemen, I will let Judy give you the background and her perspective to what we've been through. Also, her memory is better than mine. I think so.
Yes, that's quite true. Wayne, as a result of what happened, I'll just put that up in a wee bit, Wayne. We'll just hold that for a minute. With what Wayne's been through, it did knock him around in every way. So I'm going to sort of give you the background of what's happened, our out of the blue experience that started on the 27th of February this year, with Wayne being admitted to Southland Hospital in Invercargill on the 28th of February. As of today, it has been 130 days of shock, fear, grief and uncertainty mixed with peace, hope and reflection. This journey has been one that's tested my faith like never before. You know, we all have a lot of stuff in our life that tests our faith and our trust in God. You know, even having my firstborn child diagnosed with cystic fibrosis and then being told that he would only live till 9, or roughly thereabouts, never rocked me the same as this did. I just seem to have a supernatural faith and reliance in God, which has been borne out because John is now 39 years old and doing very well. So, what actually happened, just so you know what actually happened, on the 26th of February, Wayne is also regional leader for New Life Stream, so we went down to Southland because we had a meeting with the Gore Trust on that night. Wayne was fit and healthy and full of beans on that night, on the Wednesday night, and because we were going to be down for a couple of days, we had an appointment with another couple of pastors on the Saturday morning. Then we were coming home on the Saturday afternoon for Sunday here. So we get back, we go over to Riverton, we still have a house there, we go over to Riverton, we get there at 11:30 at night, go to bed, everything's fine. The next morning Wayne thought, well, since he would take his days off, his weekend would be Thursday and Friday, he'll start painting some stuff on the garage that he wanted to catch up. It was still lovely and warm then. He got out, he mucked around, and he went and got the paint ready, put the ladder up against the garage, and then he came in and he said to me, I don't have the bottle to get up that ladder. He just felt not good. And then his brother arrived, and so that was a good excuse for a cup of coffee and another hour and a half. And then so all through the day he just was going downhill. He wasn't feeling great. We went for a drive around the rocks and had a look around and had tea. Went to bed at 3 in the morning. I heard him get up, and he never came back to bed. So I thought, this is a bit weird. So I heard a bit of a shout from down, or some noise from down in the lounge. So I went down there, and here he was on the couch, just in his undies and a singlet, shaking violently, and just saying outrageous things, like not bad, but just stuff that wasn't making sense. And I thought, oh, this is not good. And I felt him, his whole torso from here, not his forehead, that really threw me. His whole torso was boiling hot. So I got him back to bed. I said, come on, get back to bed. Took him back to bed, and then I prayed over him. I really prayed. I spoke in tongues. And he actually, as I warfared in the spirit, he calmed down. Went to sleep, had another wee burst of the same about 5 in the morning. And prayed again, and he settled down. And all through the day, he was back to normal, cognitive state. But he was just ill. I thought, oh, he's got the flu, or he's got a really bad flu, or he's got COVID. So I thought I'd better text Sharon, with one of the pastors we were going to see the next morning. So that was the Thursday. Whatever, I can't remember, the days are a bit of a blur. We're going to see them on Saturday morning. And I said, look, I'm going to cancel the appointment because Wayne's not feeling well. And she's actually a nurse as well. She works in the medical ward at Southland Hospital. And she texts back and she said, what's wrong with him? And I told her. And then I said, Wayne, he'd been a bit delirious. And then she texted me back about an hour later and she said, delirium can sometimes mean that he's got an infection, that there's an infection there. So I thought, okay, I tucked that away. But like I say, through the day he was actually okay. But that night, about 9 o'clock, he started to go downhill again and started to start talking a bit of nonsense again. So I said to Wayne, I'm ringing the ambulance. And he didn't object, so I thought he must be sick. So I rang the ambulance, they came, and his temperature was 40 point something when they arrived. And they said, you've done the right thing, you've done the right thing. They did all the tests and checks, then they marched him out to the ambulance, just in his singlet and undies, and said, you're not getting a blanket, we've got to get this temperature down. And off he goes to Southland Hospital. Then I have to ring the boys in town, our two sons live in town, ring the boys and say what's happening, and I had to drive in, and I was so tired because the night before I hadn't had hardly any sleep trying to watch him and pray for him, and I was just absolutely exhausted. And we were in the ER till about 3 in the morning and left him there and went back to John's, and I stayed with John. But the interesting thing is I think God always prepares us for things in ways that we sometimes don't recognise. So as we were driving down that day to go to the meeting in Gore, and over those couple of days at Riverton, the Lord spoke very clearly into my spirit, and he said to me, Judy, you're going to have to step up. You're going to have to do a bit more for a while. And it's not like he spoke audibly or it was on flashing lights. It was just an inner knowing in my spirit. And he said, you're going to have to step up. And I didn't panic me or anything, but I sort of tucked it away. And then very quickly I saw what he meant. So he's in hospital in Invercargill. They're doing all these tests trying to find out what's wrong with him. He was very, very ill, very, very ill. And on the third day, we were told that Wayne had a condition called endocarditis. So if you'd like to put up that slide, Wayne. So endocarditis is an inflammation of the inner lining of the heart, often caused by a Staphylococcus aureus infection that spreads through the bloodstream. This infection typically affects the heart valves and can lead to serious complications like valve damage and heart failure. You know what you got if you got heart failure? You're no longer with us. So thanks, Wayne. So as you can imagine, that was a huge, huge shock. And through the days, everything just started ramping up, and there was just like, we're doing this, we're doing that. Oh, next thing we're going to Dunedin. And my whole body, my whole nervous system was just thrown into turmoil. So I had to really push into God, because like one day everything's normal, then one day you're facing this sort of thing. And I know a lot of you have faced traumatic situations, but this, for some reason, just really affected me. So he was very ill, started to lose his mobility. I was having to pull him out of bed because it goes into every part, into your joints, into all sorts of your parts of your body. His short-term memory, he started losing his short-term memory as the bacteria infiltrated his whole body. He was transferred to Dunedin Hospital, and the whole thing progressed at lightning speed. And to say it was traumatic for me was an understatement. I found myself following ambulances, being in hospital rooms, supporting Wayne while they were figuring out what was wrong, keeping the kids, family and church informed, who were all great and supportive, having to drive to Dunedin, with an hour's notice, trying to sort out things, find somewhere to stay. My youngest son, he said, Mum, what can I do? The boys are really busy at work and I didn't expect them to take me. I knew I could do it. I said, just do me one thing, just book me a motel for that first night so I know where I'm actually driving to. So he did that. Try to sort out clothes. We're only going down for 2 days, and now, over the next few days, all these things were impacted. So this was just the start of having to totally look after myself while not knowing what the future held. Find places to stay in Dunedin, parking, food, but God provided. I had to drive all over Dunedin and Otago and Southland because he got sick down there, then he was up there. And then at one point I got a ride back here for a couple of nights so I could get repacked and back again. I couldn't drive myself at that stage. I was just too worked up. I couldn't drive it. Pete and Lisa brought me back, and Paul and Deborah took me back when they were coming down, so that was really good. This was really challenging for me. So this is what God was saying, you're going to have to step up, because I hate driving in Dunedin. Remember that years ago, Matt? I hate driving in Dunedin. It's the worst place. It's a one-way streets, and they toot you real quick. And but I had to step up. I know some of you ladies just drive everywhere and it's all good. I don't mind open road driving, but in the cities it's a bit different. So this was me getting shaken, like I'd never been shaken before, to be honest. And this driving thing and having to just look after myself, it was just me in the world. I felt like it was just me in the world. And was it going to be just me in the world? Without, these things, I'm just being honest, all these thoughts assail you, And then I had to drive Wayne around for the next few months. And I think he'd rather that he was driving some of the time, but anyway. So I really had to step up. Praise the Lord, he had spoken to me and prepared me. But little did I know that the infection had destroyed Wayne's mitral valve in his heart, and without the antibiotics that we have today, this would have been fatal. This meant open heart surgery to replace the valve and do a bypass to one of his arteries, which he'll probably share with you about. All this was so shocking to us, as we still don't know how the infection entered Wayne's bloodstream and so viciously attacked his heart. More shock was to come as we were given the all clear from the infection on the 16th of May, and he'd recovered from the open heart. Well, he was recovering from the open heart surgery. So we'd given the all clear on the 16th of May. But on the 20th, just days later, Wayne became unwell again, and the infection had resurfaced, and we were in the system again. First Dunstan Hospital, then Dunedin. And this is where I faced my biggest battle. Fear tried to grip me so badly the day that I had to drive down there. Well, not the day I drove, it must be the next day. I really had to warfare in the spirit and say, I pull myself together and say, Jesus, help me. And he did it, just left. But, it was a rough few hours. Thankfully, Wayne was only in hospital 10 days this time, not 4 weeks like the first time. He came home on strong IV antibiotics for another 6 weeks, and we only just had the last infuser removed yesterday. So you see, we're still on the journey of trusting God, surrendering to him and letting him lead. We don't know what a day will bring, none of us do, but we trust he loves us and wants good for us. He has ministered to us many times with scripture and people sharing words of encouragement. I was just sharing with Pete and Pauline up at the pre-meeting, I used to hate reading the Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, because it's always read at funerals, and in this situation, I didn't like reading it because I thought, no, I'm not going down that road. But the Lord spoke to me very clearly. I thought, no, I will read it, and the Lord spoke to me very clearly, and he said, but you're walking through the valley. I'm walking with you. We're not stopping and burying you in the valley. We're walking through the valley. So we're very thankful to those who've prayed. Wayne's given a lot of thanks, and I just want to say thanks to those who got in touch, kept supporting us, even just with texts, cards, or people that have called, those that visited, sent food, and those who stepped up and looked after the church. Wayne's thanked. We're so appreciative. Peter and Lisa have just done such a fantastic job, and everyone that stepped in. Especially to Zoe and Kim for looking after the house and keeping the home fires burning. Every time we came back, we had a nice warm house and food cooked, and that has been such a blessing. We love you all and appreciate everything that people have done, all the prayers. This journey is still continuing, so we ask that if you could please remember us in your prayers to see this bug totally eliminated from Wayne's body with no further flare-ups, and for his strength to return. We're heading to Dunedin this week for tests and checkups, and we're believing that the good news will continue, and that I do kind of feel like we're on the home straight. So I'm going to head over to Wayne now, and he'll give you some things that have happened to him and how the Lord's ministered to him.
So often, when we as individuals, believer or not, go through some traumatic experience, I've been always aware that God gives us a grace. Sometimes the people who actually wrestle or struggle the most, who actually need the biggest arms around them, are the spouse or the children or the family or whoever it is that is in close proximity or somehow involved with whatever the trauma or the event, but can be a little bit just kind of pushed to the side, just marginalised unintentionally, because all the focus goes on the suffering person. And I just want to thank everyone for family, church, friends, all of that, for putting your arms around my wife and looking after her through that time, because God truly did give me a grace. And I just want to share some of that today. We were singing, as I thank Tommy for the songs and the whole worship this morning, but like all of the songs spoke to me. And they're all about, they all echo my life and my walk and my journey with the Lord, particularly that line, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been good. In spite of my wrong choices or wrong actions at times, God's always been good and he's always been faithful. So right from the very first ambulance response, in fact, I started to be comforted by God strategically placing people along my journey. The first was a young woman called Samantha, the ambo driver who came to pick me up and attend to me. And it wasn't, I don't know at what point or what stage the penny dropped, but I used to teach her in the young youth group at Riverton, in Riverton New Life Church, and her father and mother and her family were one of the founding families of the New Life Church down there in Riverton. And at some point she spoke up on my behalf. She answered a question to her associate, and I don't know if it was Judy or I was like, how would you know that? And then she goes, oh, I'm Sam, remember, or something, don't you remember me? And then the penny dropped, and I was like, whoa, how they grow up. But anyway, and so she transported me to Kew Hospital. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, that's great to see that she's an AMBO officer now. And not, I wasn't really thinking too much about myself. I was interested in what she'd been up to. So I find myself in Invercargill Hospital, or Kew Hospital, as we call it, very unwell, high temp, as Judy said, and I was sore all over. I remembered things that I damaged on my body as a child came back to haunt me over those couple of days. Every ligament, joint, sprain, previous breakage or whatever was just screaming and inflamed over that 48-hour period. And I was like, why would that knee be hurting so? Why can I not use my knee? And then I'm like, oh, that's right, I caught it on a log out hunting, Anyway, it was a weird, strange old time which I'd never wish on anybody. What to do, though, lying there, being tested and poked and prodded, but no one having a clue what I had or what was going on? I could panic or I could fear. But because I had no idea what was wrong with me at that stage. what do you think I would tell you if I visited you in hospital? I kind of like that thought went through my mind a bit. I'd be like, you're a pastor, like you visit sick people. What do you tell them? What's your advice to them? And I was like, yeah, okay, I should do that. Maybe I should do that. I'd probably say something like this, that God knows your situation, that Jesus paid for your healing through the whipping he endured, and I'd encourage you to trust God and maintain your faith, and then I'd pray for you to be healed. Could I have the second slide? Thank you, Wayne. Hebrews 11, verse 1 to 2. Give me great comfort because it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. They didn't know what was wrong with me. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. You know, and I lay there thinking, I would like to think I could practice what I preach. So, 11:6. But without faith it's impossible to please him, that's God. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And so, even though I had moments of, a lot of moments of not knowing or not understanding in that first 48 hours, as I said, I just felt a grace, or the grace and or the presence of God come over me, which I want to share. The next slide, thanks, Wayne. John Wesley, and some of you will be familiar with this quote, it's a famous quote of his. He says, I have never known more than 15 minutes of anxiety or fear. Whenever I feel fearful emotions overtaking me, I just close my eyes and thank God that he is still on the throne, reigning over everything, and I take comfort in his control over the affairs of my life. I reckon that's amazing words of wisdom. It's not scripture, but I reckon it's a gem. Which brings me to the second night I was in hospital, still not diagnosed. I asked God, they put me in an isolation room because they thought that I might have had something contagious, which I didn't. Put me in this room by myself, had a window, looked down towards the water tower, north facing in Invercargill. And it was just a comfortable room, but I appreciated that it was by myself because if I was groaning and making noises and stuff, I didn't want to upset anybody else. But I'm lying there, and nurses about 9:30, they turned the lights down and everything, made me as comfortable as they could, and they left the room, shut the door. I was lying there, I asked God, what's happening to me? Why am I here? Which is a fair question in the situation, I thought. And I asked that a couple of times and reworded it different ways. And then just really as the moon, I could catch the moon out of the corner of my eye on the window, it had come up, and I was kind of just looking at the moon for a moment. And then the presence of God filled the room where I was in such a tangible and powerful way that even though every bone in my body had been aching and everything was sore and blah, blah, whatever was going on, I can only describe it like I felt a pair of hands come under me, and I felt like I was in the hands of God, just suspended off the bed, because the mattress was really, when you were aching that bad, the mattress gave no relief. It was just pressure points. And I just, all of a sudden, nothing hurt, nothing was sore, and I didn't feel hot or I didn't feel cold or anything. I just felt, only way I can describe it was I was in someone's hands, which I'd never experienced previously. And then I was like, okay, this is good, but what is going on? Like, what's happening to me? You know, like, what have I got, sort of? God never answered that. There was no audible voice during this time at all, just him speaking to my consciousness, really, into my mind. And he said this, I've got you, and we're going through this together. And that was great. I had another question. One more question, please. So I'm suspended, the pain's gone, I'm in this amazing presence of God. The room's like, to me, electric and dynamic, and and God's just said, we're going through this together. What is this? Excuse me, God, but you must know, but I have no idea. To which he never answered. He just reaffirmed a couple of times over a couple of hours that he had me, and reaffirmed that we're going through this together. So I didn't find out. I thought I might have got a sneak, diagnosis, but it never happened. Now, some other things. So there was no pain, but this was a really special. I've not experienced anything like it previous. And in the circumstances, I don't really want to experience it again in that circumstance, not in a hospital bed. But here's the things, and I'm being really honest, and I don't want to offend anybody, and you have to have sort of been there and process it in context. So please I don't want anyone quoting me saying, oh, Pastor Wayne didn't care about this. Like, that's not the point. Lying there, I wanted nothing. Lying there, I was fully content. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I had no fear. I had no concerns about anyone or anything. So again, please don't be offended. That doesn't mean I don't love my wife dearly, who's stuck by my side. But in that presence, I wasn't bothered. I didn't think of Tova. Come here. I didn't think my most recent cheeky little granddaughter. No, I didn't. Yeah, well, that's that. But I didn't think of her because I was in the presence of God. And I don't know. I'm still processing it. I had no plans or dreams or aspirations to be anything or anyone or complete anything. I was just content. And what that's left me with, if that is somehow a glimpse of what it's like, it was nothing because it hasn't entered into our minds yet what it really is to be together with the Lord and in his presence forever. But if that's just a taste or a glimpse of it, I'm pretty excited because that's what I experienced. I didn't have a sense of being bored. That, oh, okay, gosh, this has been good, couple of hours, nothing like that at all. I was just fully content until about midnight and the door burst open, the light switch got switched on, and I love to say it appeared to me like a village of Filipino nurses poured into the room and started fussing over me and apologizing and everything. And apparently someone was in a worse state than I was, and so I was getting kicked out at midnight out of the room and poked somewhere else. And they were all very sorry about it. And that's what interrupted my 2+ hours suspended in the hands of God in his presence. But that is the most profound personal experience that I've had, save giving my life to him and experiencing the Holy Spirit back in the early days. So the writer of Hebrews, in chapter 13, verse 7, quotes Deuteronomy 31:6 and says this, be strong and of good courage. Do not fear nor be afraid of them. For the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. And obviously, out the other side of that, what has so kept me, and when people say, oh, you look good, and aren't you a bit worried? Aren't you a bit concerned? Oh, aren't you anxious? Oh, that's major surgery, blah, blah. Like, if you know what I'm like, I'm blood, far out. I've fainted before. I've fainted one time getting a fish hook out of my small finger. No, I'm like the worst person you know with human blood. I look away if I'm bleeding myself. So for me to be able to face such significant surgery and the clean up and all the drama afterwards and that, and no anxiety, no fear, no like, oh no, please don't, I didn't say anything. No, that never entered my mind. Because what I took away from that evening in the presence of God was that we were going through it together. So when it turned out to be endocarditis and open heart surgery and bypass and all the drama that went with that and antibiotics, I really have been able to rest in the fact that, oh well, God said we're going through it together. That's good enough for me. Could I open the next slide, please? You have some funny moments, though. It wasn't all like the public hospital system, as many of you have been in it. You have your interesting moments as well. Check the chair out. That is a functioning, working wheelchair in the public health system in New Zealand. I know it looks like a museum photo. This is a crack-up story. Second day I was in Dunedin Hospital. Endocarditis can often, 90% of the time or something, it comes from bad teeth or gums. Anyway, that's just a thing. It's what it is. Anyway, so they were sending me over to the medical school for a checkup. And it's a bit of about a block, a couple of corners. So they dialed up an orderly. And bless her, I got a brand new orderly, first week on the job. And someone had said to her, take a wheelchair with you. So she turned up with that. And the nurses were kind of busy. And so the nurses are kind of busy. And she must ask them on the way past. I don't know how it'll work. But I end up in the chair. I end up in that chair, just in my gown, 9 o'clock in the morning. Just in my gown, no shower, nothing. Well, not that I wasn't worried about the shower, but I'm just in the old hospital gown, flowing in the breeze. And she said, oh, are you okay like that? And I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going. I don't know, where is this? Is it just down the hall? Is it 2 floors? And I said, oh yeah, I'll be okay. Next minute, we're out of the ward in the lift, and I'm like, okay, it's not as warm out in the corridor. Seriously, nothing, nude, and all I had was a gown on. So we get out onto the ground floor, and I'm starting to think, this is getting serious now. I can see the calf, so we are right down. And then we're heading, and she is chirping away. She was such a bubbly, wonderful person for the job, amazing personality. Anyway, and she's heading for the doors, and I'm like, I said, oh yeah. I said, oh, are we going outside? She said, oh yes, it's the dental school. It's over the road and across there. Boom, out through the doors, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm basically nude, but got a bit of a sheet wrapped around me. In that, look at the wheels. There's bigger ruts in the footpath than the wheels. And she was quite a strong, tall girl. And oh my gosh, and she was heaving though by the time she got me down the footpath. Then they got those yellow things. For people with braille sticks everywhere. That's exciting in that, like 2-metre strips of that. Then she stops at the pedestrian crossing, and at 9 o'clock, people are going to work. It's of all the suits, everything, and that. And they're standing there, and they're like, both sides of me. And I'm like, morning, or so. I'm like, morning, brisk, isn't it? It's brisk. They're all wrapped up, like jackets on. Anyway, she didn't think anything of it. We roared across the diagonal street crossing. Thank the Lord she didn't do the 2-stage bit. We get across and up the ramp into the dental school, and there's 4 receptionists at the dental school. It's pretty serious, full on. It's like the Starship Enterprise. You've been there lately? You go in, it's like you're looking actually for alien beings, that are going to be like scootering around. Anyway, up the ramp, and 2 of the receptionists, they knew I was coming, 2 of them whipped around from behind the desk, came roaring over and go, we'll take him from here, yep, we'll ring you when we want you to pick him up. And they sent her back, and then they were profusely apologetic. They were like, one of them was sick, my age, and she'd been working there forever. She said, I've never seen them. They've never sent someone across in this state ever. And I said, I thought it was unusual. Anyway, it wasn't my teeth. Other funny moments in Ward 7, the cardio ward at Dunedin. You need some light moments because it's kind of a grim sort of place. There does need to be a new one. It's like a working museum. I was chatting to a roommate. There's 4 of us in a room. He was in a bed across from me, but he was in a bad way with possible heart failure, and they didn't really know what to do with him. He was been in for a day or 2. I talked the usual stuff with him, gold mining, white baiting, horse racing and betting, and that was their conversation over the day or 2, and then I told him, something came up, because he asked me about, do you follow the horses? Somehow we got on there. I said, no, I told him I gave it up when my horse died, which is true. I had a race thoroughbred, I bred a thoroughbred colt, and it got caught in a barbed wire fence, and the vet had to put it down. And so that was my last horse I ever had anything to do with. So it was true. I gave up when my horse died. That was actually an answer to prayer. But he didn't know all that, which was technically correct. Anyway, the next day in conversation, I mentioned having the Sunday off church. And he goes, what are you, a priest or something? And then he had a chuckle. Oh, it was so funny. So I had opportunity. Obviously, I'd answer that question. So I shared my faith, and I've invited him to church next time he's up this way. He likes to come to Wanaka, but, only God knows. He was pretty hard on the church, I'd have to say, and Christianity. Real hard, actually. But we still got on fine. I met some interesting people, a few Christians who saw my Bible or read that I was a pastor and on my notes and that, and they would comment. I had one lovely Indian nurse who just stood out as compassionate, and she had such countenance about her, smiled all the time, was just really caring. Many are, but she just stood out. And about the second time, I think she looked after me or attended to me, it turned out her and her husband pastor the Indian Pentecostal church in Dunedin. It was just obvious. It was just obvious. She was just in a normal nurse's uniform and stuff, but she stood out. And she just happened to be named after the same as my sister's name, so that helped me remember her. The food slide, thanks. It's not bad. No, it's not bad. People go on about hospital food. Hospital food is the butt of jokes. That was beautiful sliced beef and veggies and chocolate sauce pudding and all the rest of it to follow. It's not. Yeah, everything is easy to chew or swallow. That's just the thing about hospital food. And my complaint was no eggs. No eggs. You never got poached eggs. Anyway, I don't know what that's about. They're easy to swallow. And I imagine it's, it's a bit like prison, but I haven't been to prison. It's a bit like prison. After a while, your daily highlights are the feed times, when your tray will arrive. And so you start to sort of focus on feeding time. Next slide, thanks, Wayne. So that's our very own Zeb and Shane Samiri. I was allowed out just the once before my surgery for a quick haircut, and who better to break me out than a prison guard and a bouncer? Because I wasn't really allowed out.
God has a sense of
Yeah, God's got a sense of humour. And of course, Zeb arranged it. You know what I mean? Say no more. Zeb arranged the haircut. As some of you know, my sense of smell is very diminished. I don't know if you know me that well, but Pastor Pete likes dropping a bomb in the cockpit of the truck or whatnot because he can get away with it with me. But anyway, he reckons I never notice. So my sense of smell is somewhat diminished. To smell a fragrance or if Judy puts perfume on, I've got to be real close or it's got to be really fresh and up close. One night at just after 11 p.m, when the nurses changed shift around about that time, an incredibly beautiful fragrance filled the 4-bed ward or room that I was in. And just about the same time, a nurse came around the end of my curtain, and I didn't see her face or anything. It was just because the lights were down. It was definitely she was definitely one of the Indian girls, and she came to hook me up on my 6-hourly IV antibiotics, and we just said a couple of pleasantries, a few words or whatnot, and then she left, and it lingered. And I was like, what is that? What is someone let off in the hospital ward, this ward, that could smell that good? Like, nurses have been coming and going for days, and I hadn't detected anything. And, it lingered all night, which is bizarre and unusual for me to smell anything for longer than about 15 seconds. Was such an amazingly sweet perfume, and I never smelled it again. It had a profound calming effect on me ahead of my open heart surgery, which was in the next day or the day after. And I think I wasn't sleeping very well because they were hooking me up all the time. But yeah, I don't know, I can't prove it. Because I tried to track her down and find out the perfume and all of that, because I thought, far out, that's a standout perfume. I should get my wife a bottle. But nothing worked out, just couldn't track it down, didn't happen. Anyway, all I can put it down to is, again, that God visited me with the fragrance of the Lord. Because it didn't make sense otherwise. And never happened again. And that so ministered to me and was such a calming effect on me. I had some pastors visit. Many dropped in, said hello, and prayed with me in hospital, as some good friends did as well. They didn't hold back. One or two of them prayed up a storm. There's four of us in the ward. One had the windows rattling just about. With how they were praying for me and commanding everything to leave and healing and things, which I really appreciated, and actually opened up opportunity to have a chat with some of them, because one or two of my roommates at times will be like, oh, well, your mate got pretty excited. And another one, I won't say his name, but in the bed next to me at one, because the curtains are pulled around while you have visit and that, and he called out, "You all right in there?" Anyway, wasn't all bad. Got over that, and of course, my starring visitors who came and seen me, having my grandkids, that was amazing, and it was real good for morale. Most nights this is before the surgery. I was nearly 3 weeks in hospital before the surgery on account of the infection and timing and trying to tee up the surgery and things, which it was boring. It really was boring that long in there. But most nights before the surgery, I would walk 12 laps of the whole Ward 7. It's about 280 paces. It's exactly 280 paces. One side, so you double that, it's 560. So, I just had to do something to keep fit, and I do it at weird times, and this disturbed the nurses who would come out, and some were a bit anxious. They'd be checking on me. They go, "Are you all right? Are you all right, sir?" And all this, they come out from the station. I go, "Yeah, fine, I'm just on lap 8. And they'd be like, "Oh, should you be doing?" Then they go and have a powwow about whether I should be walking that much. But the surgeon said it was fine because if I collapse, it would be there. And I suspect the nurses didn't want me dropping on their watch. So as it turned out, not only was my mitral valve damaged, I had one artery pinched down to only 20% blood flow. Even though I had no plaque when they did the angiogram, I was plaque-free. But for some reason, one artery was pinched down to 20%. That is called the LAD. And interestingly, which they never shared in hospital with me, I found out afterwards, they call that the widowmaker, because if it goes, most people die unless they're close to a hospital. Comforting to not know that information. Which the surgeon was able to repair properly while they had me opened up. And as I said, I don't even like the sight of blood, so it's only by the grace of God that I manned up. Having my chest sawn open, my heart bypassed, while they cut it open to replace a valve, had the potential to cause me some stress. However, I had no anxiety and even went over the operation in the ICU the night before, so I knew what to expect. God was definitely faithful. He was there with me, and the care I received from the staff was 100% amazing and professional. Cover that next. This next slide's a wee bit rough. So rather than bearing my chest, that was the wound which some of you in the room here, I know, carry the same scar, but save ripping my shirt off. And the next one, please. I wanted to try and show you what. It's pretty tricky. Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you got the laser pointer? Because you can see. I just thought people ask. I thought, okay. Might as well try and explain it. I've got 6 clips. Everyone gets 6, I think. Is that pretty standard? 6 clips to close you up. Yeah, there you go. Right. So 6 clips. I don't know if you can see them from there, but there they go. Stainless steel clips that they close up your sternum with. But the interesting, that's 3 of the clips there. I just took this photo off one of the doctor's screens when he was reviewing an x-ray. I said, can I take a photo of it? It might be useful. But there's the valve there. Can you see that? It's quite large. I didn't think it was that big. So that's my replaced mitral valve there, tissue valve. I just thought that might be save people asking. So, where is it? What does it look like? Well, that's the best I've got of what it looks like. Sorry? You got 12 clips. Oh, I wonder if they might have a different model by the time I got there, Steve. Next slide, thanks, Matthew. Yeah. God even provided some advice on what type of valve I would choose, and I just want to say that God lined it up. So Judy and I were in the foyer of the hospital, blah, blah. Someone I hadn't seen for 20 years was there with his wife, nothing to do with heart dramas. He said, "What the beep beep are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, it's a bit of a story." He asked, and as soon as I started to tell the story, he said, "Oh, that happened to me 10 years ago, just about to the day." He said, "In here, who's your surgeon?" Same surgeon I had. And then first words out of his mouth, Judy and I had gone down to pray, talk, try and work out what sort of valve I would go for, because there's two options. And he straight away, next question he said was, "Oh, what valve are you going for?" And I went, we're still working that out. He shared what he went for and why, and that it was 10 years and still going fine. And Judy and I looked at each other, and we actually told him, he's not really a believer at all, but we told him it was a divine encounter. And his wife even said that to Judy. And so I chose the same valve he got, but based on that. But so God's faithful. Like, I'd been wrestling with it. Oh, which one? Solved. We didn't have to do the pros and cons on a sheet of paper. So Jesus' own assurance to us in Matthew 28:20. I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. Amen. And Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And I just want to encourage all of us here, everyone, as followers of Jesus, as Christian soldiers, do we believe his word and his promises? Because it's times like what I've been through that, so am a pastor, so what? Do I believe his word and his promises are more important than the title? And how much head knowledge I've got, how much I've studied, how many sermons I've written and delivered. Do I believe him? And do I believe his word? In the parable of the persistent widow, Jesus lamented in verse 8 of chapter 18. He said, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on the earth? Will he really find faith? I believe our faith is built by trusting God and his word in the good times and with the seemingly small things, so that when we face major trials or challenges, we have already built a testimony of God being faithful. Think about that. Trust him in the small things, and we can have a testimony of God already being faithful. Meeting our needs, delivering us from harm, defending us from attack, so that he gets the glory. We're not the heroes. Jesus is the hero of our faith. Is Jesus your hero? Is he your Saviour? Don't overthink it. Invite him in as Lord and start the journey with him. Whatever you're going through, my one encouragement this morning is trust God. He is with you, seen or unseen. And finally, John 16:33, these things I've spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation or trials, but be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. Amen. I'm still going through this. I have a day of checkups and testing in Dunedin on Tuesday. It's like a full-on day to check how my heart valve is going. I've got to swallow a camera and do stuff. That the infection has completely gone is, as Judy said, what we're believing for. I feel good, ready to go, and I'm standing on the promise that through Jesus' stripes I am healed. Can we pray?